Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. I don't want to say the BYU Cougars are back, because they may have never left, baby. And they got actually two big pieces of news over the weekend I want to go ahead and dive into right now. And let's go ahead and talk. By the way, should mention the deadline to enter the NBA draft. In other words, if you want to enter the draft, even if you want to maintain your college eligibility, it was Saturday night at midnight Eastern. By the way, producer Matt, do me a favor when you get a second, monitor Twitter. Alex Caravan is the only player. We have no word from him if he's staying, if he's going, if he's entering, if he's whatever. We'll have to talk about that. But NBA draft deadline was Saturday night. And of the few big players that we did not get an announcement from, one of them was Richie Saunders. All Big 12 player at BYU this past season. You know Torres was Cougar crazy. You know we talked about BYU a lot. I thought they were one of the coolest stories in the sport. I went out for the BYU-Kansas game, got to see them all in person right as this team got going. They make their first Sweet 16 since 2011 with Jimmer Fredette, who recently retired. Well, I only bring it up to very simply say that BYU had, past tense, a chance to be really good, but it was all contingent on would Richie Saunders, all Big 12 first-team member, 16.5 points per game, return to college basketball. Well, on Saturday night, I would say it was about 6 p.m. Pacific, so maybe 7 or so Mountain Time, somewhere in that neighborhood. Richie Saunders officially announced that he is returning to college basketball. And with that said, I think the conversation about BYU is very simple. Entering the 25-26 season, the BYU Cougars, people, are absolutely a national championship contender. It sounds crazy. Don't let it fool you. Torres is Cougar crazy. You should be too, because this team is loaded. Okay, by the way, Richie Saunders not the only news from the weekend. We'll get to that in a minute. First of all, Richie Saunders, if you're watching this show in late April, you love college basketball, and you know how good this kid was, okay? And actually, I think the stats are a little bit deceptive on how good he was late. He was a holdover from the Mark Pope era. Kevin Young. By the way, you could argue maybe outside the biggest recruiting win for Kevin Young was keeping the biggest. Sorry, I get tripped out there for a second. You could argue outside of AJ DeBonsa committing to BYU, the biggest recruiting win that Kevin Young has had at BYU is Richie Saunders, because Mark Pope wanted him bad. Richie Saunders, if you remember, went so far as to make a visit to Kentucky when Mark Pope took the job. Kevin Young convinces him to come back, and he was a rock star last year. As I said, 16.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 43% three-point shooting. Let me say this. I think those stats are actually a little bit deceptive in terms of how good that he actually was. That sounds crazy. How can you say that? He's all Big 12 first team. It's because he got fundamentally better as the season went on. Yes, BYU lost to Alabama in the Sweet 16. It was because of Richie Saunders. 25 points in that game against Alabama. 25 points against Wisconsin in the round of 32. By the way, 3 of 4 from behind the three-point arc in that game. In the Big 12 tournament, 23 against a very good Iowa State team. Earlier in the season, 23 in that wild win at Iowa State, 26 at Arizona, 23 at Arizona, or 26 at Arizona State, 23 at Arizona, 22 at the game that I was at, Kansas. I don't have time to crunch the numbers. I would guess he averaged probably closer to about 20 points per game over about the final 10 to 12 games of the year, right as BYU got hot. So this kid is a bona fide All-American first-team candidate coming back next year. It's also worth noting, by the way, that on top of the fact that he's an All-American candidate coming back next year, he's a legitimate NBA draft prospect too. So that's why it's a big win. I think if he goes through the process, he is one of the 60 or so names that's called on draft night. Now, is he a first rounder? I don't know, but ultimately it does not matter because he's not testing. He's not doing anything. He is coming back, and this is huge for BYU. Should mention, by the way, before we get to why I believe they're a championship contender, they actually got a nice little portal commitment on Friday as well, a kid by the name of Kennard Davis Jr. from Southern Illinois. 6'6" wing. I'll say this. My boy Kevin Young certainly got a type. He likes those big, long, athletic wings that can shoot threes. KY, my man, you got a type. 16.5 points per game, 6'6" kid, 16.5 points per game, 38% three-point shooting. And what did I say about BYU earlier? It was never about finding superstars in the portal, although they got one in Rob Wright, who we'll talk about in a minute. But it was about finding pieces that fit with the infrastructure that was in place. And so when you factor in Saunders, when you factor in Kennard Davis, and you factor in the rest of this team, BYU's freaking stacked. And I think they're very much a title contender. What else do they have? Well, they obviously have the big dog, AJ Debonsa. AJ Debonsa, I'll tell you this. I went back and watched the Nike Hoop Summit game. I think there are times that I think even I've taken for granted how freaking good AJ Debonsa is. 6'9", super athletic, plays crazy, crazy, crazy hard, both ends of the floor, competes, defends, which I think is a big thing. A lot of freshmen, they're just not going to do. And the thing I'll say is, listen, we all, and I include myself in this, we probably overhype some of these freshmen coming in. And you do think, you look at college basketball most years, it's really like 2 to 3 guys that are actually impact players in college, like major impact all-conference guys. Well, AJ Debonsa is going to be one of them next year. Darren Peterson's good. Cam Boozer's good. Those guys will be great in their spots. Darren Peterson at Kansas, Cam Boozer at Duke. But AJ Debonsa is going to be a star. This isn't a guy that's like, oh, is he actually overhyped or what? No. He is going to be a superstar for that team. And then you have Richie Saunders, who's going to be an All-American and NBA draft player. And I think the main key from this offseason, Rob Wright is another guy that I think could be an all Big 12 player. This was a kid that, of course, transferred from Baylor, was an all Big 12 freshman team performer last year. So I think that's a big part. This is a kid that has done it in the Big 12. This isn't a transfer from, no disrespect, but from the Mountain West or the A-10 or the WAC or the Sun Belt or the whatever. This is a kid who has done it in the Big 12, 11.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists per game. And now he's going to do it with really good talent around him in an NBA system. I just think he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to be a breakout star at BYU. You have Keba Keita coming back, the Incredible Hulk, 8 points, 8 boards per game. And I think low key, I think this Kennard Davis kid is actually a bigger deal than maybe we realize, because now if you assume that he's the 5th starter, if you assume that he's the last really big name that they're planning on bringing in, let's think about what that starting 5 looks like, okay? So you have Rob Wright at the 1, 6'3", 6'4", really good player. You have the next 3 guys are all switchable, are all interchangeable. Kennard Davis, 6'6", Richie Saunders, 6'5", 6'6", AJ Debonsa, 6'8", 6'9". And those are all guys that essentially, in my opinion, can basically play like the 2 through the 4. So it's like you need Richie Saunders to be the 2. Richie Saunders is going to be the 2. You need him to be a 4 in a really small lineup. He could probably be a 4. They're all interchangeable defensively. I think in a worst case scenario, they could probably defend 2 through 4 easily. I think depending on who you're playing, you could put one of them on a 5 potentially if you're playing somebody that has like a 6'8" center. And then, in a pinch, they can handle the ball. They can defend. The point I'm trying to make, that starting 5 is sick because you have 3 guys that are totally interchangeable, 2 through 4. You have Rob Wright, who I think is going to be one of the best point guards in college basketball. Keba Keita, monster big man down low. And remember, they also have Xavier Staten off the bench. That is a true 7-footer, 7'1" kid out of Vegas who was a top 25 prospect that Michigan wanted, that I know UNLV wanted him, the hometown school, but I only bring it up because that is a stacked roster. And so when I look at this team, I'm here to tell you that Richie Saunders was after you got the Debonsa commitment, Richie Saunders was clearly the most important piece. And we've talked about BYU and we've been excited for BYU and we've been excited about what it means, but I'll be real. Cougs fans, I hate to be this crass. None of it would have mattered if you don't get Richie Saunders back. Now, I don't think there was ever really a point where he was not going to return, but you get Richie Saunders back, and now, boy, oh boy, it's game on, man. It's game on. Listen, Big 12 is going to be great like it always is. Arizona's going to be good. Houston's going to be awesome. Iowa State's going to be awesome. Texas Tech is going to be awesome. Kansas is going to be pretty good. I know we're all a little down on Kansas, but BYU's as good as any of them, man. And I'm just so excited to watch this team. Are they in it? Listen, I look at these rosters all day, every day in April and into May. This is easily a top 10 roster, probably in like the 4 to 6 range, much more than they are like the 8, 9, 10 range. And I'm here to tell you, this BYU team, you want to talk about a team that can make a Final Four, win a national championship. This team is that. I'm just here to tell you, they really are. They're that good. I think the other thing too, and I'll be quick because I'm going long on this topic, retention is so key. We get so excited about the portal stuff, the 5 stars. You have to have guys that know the system. Well, Richie Saunders is back. Keba Keita is back. I could be wrong. I think Dawson Baker might be back too. But you need those guys that have been in the system. BYU has one. I am so excited for the season ahead. Dawson Baker has eligibility. I don't think he hit the portal, so could have 3 or 4 key guys back if you include some of the freshmen that played a little bit last year.